Good morning, everyone. It is day 31. It is day 31 of spiritual healthcare. I hope you guys had a really good evening and afternoon and a morning this morning. I don't know what everybody's weather is doing where you are, but it is finally warming up here. It is nearly 20 Celsius here, or will be later, which is really great. I hope everybody is having an awesome day today. We've got some really great subject matter to crunch into today. We're going to be delving into some new territory, a little bit like branching off of what we have done, but we're gonna bring in some new stuff as well. So I'm looking forward to hey everybody. Nice to see you all, Patricia and Jay and Chris, everybody logging in. It's great to see you guys, or at least, see your names pop up anyway. So yeah, we got some great content today. We branched into a little bit of the aspects of forgiveness and things like that yesterday. We're going to pull more of that in today, how it relates to not only the paranormal, but we're going to be talking about how we're going to move forward and have to apply it now, where we are in our current situation, our current society, and just this time in history, and how we can start to work through that. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how that ends up applying and getting reflected back to us in paranormal situations, and why it's important. Why is it important? Why can't we just, sort of hold a grudge and say, forget it, people, but we've got to work through this stuff. So there's lots of things that we're going to cover today. I'm excited to get into it because, it's a subject that I think it goes unnoticed and untalked about, because a lot of people have some very hardcore misconceptions about what forgiveness is. And a lot of people don't want to do it. They think that they're somehow making the other person right, if for some reason they forgive or something like that. So we're going to clear up a bunch of mythos about that today, and as I say, talk about how it relates to what we end up getting with paranormal phenomenon, and why it's important. I think, in the last number of months, there has been so much frustration. There's been so much anger and things like that going around. I think a lot of us are, we've been watching stuff that has not been very fun, and we're going to have to work those forgiveness muscles, I think, pretty good. Good morning, Des. Good morning, Bernie. Good morning, Nigel. Everybody that's logging in. This is great. It's good to see you all. I always let people know that are new. If you guys want to catch up on past classes of spiritual healthcare, you can go to youtube.com/entityseeker or entityseeker.ca, because we put all of the past classes up there, so that you guys don't miss anything, or if you want to go back on something, then you can. So what I wanted to get into excuse me, about forgiveness is that when we don't realize just how much some of this stuff can really end up just sticking with us, almost like molasses, right? So when we talk about things like, hauntings, and like the negative side of hauntings and things like that, it's really interesting when you start to delve into people's psychology behind why some of this is happening around them. It's interesting how fast people are to start to blame outside circumstances, right? And we see this all the time, and we're seeing this all the time, definitely right now with the pandemic going on. Everybody's pointing fingers. It's these people's fault, or it's that person's fault, or, it's this culture's fault, or whatever. Like, there's so much finger pointing going on. And what's interesting is that when we look at hauntings is probably one of the few times in our lives where people absolutely take no responsibility for the stuff that they've got going on within their space. Like, zero responsibility, because we've been taught for so many years that a haunting or any sort of paranormal phenomenon is being asserted on us, rather than something that is coming through us, or is being mirrored. The energy is being mirrored back because of what we've got going on. And it's interesting to delve into people's viewpoints on this, and I'm taking this somewhere, so bear with me. there's a lot of excuses. Whenever I sit down with a client, there's a lot of excuses, explaining things like, well, my family all had this happen to me or happen to them, so of course it's happening to me. I've got all of this negative stuff going on, all this negative phenomenon. I've moved 10 times, so therefore, I'm cursed, or I've been victimized, or I'm there's something. But it's always something that's being asserted on them. And usually, if you start to break it down in other areas of people's lives, we start to see this as a consistent pattern. So for example, the ability to own or take ownership of the energy that we've got happening, the feelings that we've got going on, is absolutely 100% important when we're moving into the area of forgiveness. Because so much of the time, what ends up happening is that we gloss something over, we don't acknowledge how we're feeling in our hearts, we don't acknowledge if somebody hurt us, we don't speak it. And not only do we not know how to give the forgiveness, but oftentimes we don't know how to ask for it either. We don't know. So there's stuff that either goes unsaid, there's stuff that ends up getting blamed. We blame outside circumstances or one another or whatever it is, whatever it looks like. And we don't tell the truth. We don't tell the truth about what it is that's going on, what it is that we're feeling, and how these, whatever circumstances it is actually affecting us. We don't tell the truth. In how many times have we actually said, I feel hurt because this happened, and now I'm feeling whatever it is. So oftentimes we don't own that. It's just simpler and easier to put that blame on something else. So when we get a haunting that is reflecting back to us some sort of pain, some sort of trauma, whether it be an abusive relationship, we've used that example in the past because there's been a number of cases that we've talked about, that I've mentioned, that have had a direct relationship with a scenario like that. A physically or emotionally abusive relationship that has now, the person's left, they've come into a new place in their life, they didn't heal it up, that wound is still bleeding, and it manifests as this negative haunting that's now become abusive and aggressive. So we see this all the time, but again, there's this one missing piece that we haven't talked about, and that's forgiveness. It's easy to blame. It's very easy to blame. And as I say, we don't know how to ask for it. When we give up the projection, right? When we give up the blame, when we give up the projection, what ends up happening is that we end up being able to at least take a step back, at least take a seat and say, hey, wait a minute. If we give up the projection of what it is, of whatever it is we're putting out there, then typically what ends up happening is that we automatically start to see that change within that phenomenon around us. Energies begin to see us different. And I'm not talking about just, non-physical energy. I mean people. People start to view you different. I noticed there's lots of new people logging on this morning. That's so awesome. Hi Gina, hi Sarah, hi Shadow, of course. Hey Darren, good morning. And I love this. I love this subject for this today, because the importance of being able to forgive is also going to be a factor in your level and your ability to trust. So here's the thing with hauntings and trust, okay? So when we get outside circumstances, and this applies to our current pandemic as well, when we get outside circumstances that begin to upset our normal, right? If we get these outside circumstances that start to make us, change our routine, or start to feel insecure, there's unpredictable events going on, then oftentimes what our brains start to do is we start to look for, number one, those circumstances to change in order for us to feel different, which is a big mistake. Because if we're relying on those outside circumstances for our sense of trust and security, that's a big problem. And this is probably one of the number one things that clients that are dealing with hauntings run into, is they are looking for these outside circumstances to make them feel better. And oftentimes what these hauntings are here to teach us, what they're here to demonstrate to us, is that we have to be able to find that emotional center before we start to see the outside change and move into something different. So whenever we've got these types of circumstances, they challenge our ability to forgive, and they challenge our ability to trust in ourselves, to trust in, you know, all that is non-physical, and challenge the ability to, as I trust ourselves enough to be able to handle the circumstances that are going on. So I'm going to tie this together for everybody so that you guys are following what I'm getting at. So forgiveness is interesting because when we start to branch into a scenario where we're having to look at someone that we're just angry as hell at. You might be angry as hell at your parent that you might sit across the table from at like Christmas, or a sister or brother or something like that. And, you know, you think, well, I see them once a year. It doesn't matter. You know, I'm going to stuff it. I'm going to, you know, whatever. And I'm going to leave it. And I'm going to move ahead. But here's the thing. Whenever we've got something in us that's broken, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be relationship wise. It could be with a boss. It could be with a job. It could be that you got fired. And especially in this time, in history, you know, people have lost their jobs and they're pissed about it. But being able to heal that up isn't for the other person. It really isn't. It has nothing to do, forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. And that's one thing that I so want to drive home today, because here's one of the biggest misconceptions about forgiveness is that it has to do with somebody else. They think it has to do with making that other person right. And that is not what forgiveness is at all. You don't got to make the other person. The person might be dead wrong. They might be dead wrong. But here's the thing. The only point of attraction that you end up affecting is yours. And we touched on this a little bit yesterday. So the only thing that you can change is how you are projecting that energy forward. It's the only thing you can change. You can't change how they're thinking about it. There are so many people that are on the damn therapist couch because of, you know, one person, and maybe that person was you. Maybe somebody's on the therapist couch, you know, because something you did. So not only do we struggle with forgiveness and you know, to be able to put it towards other people, but forgiving ourselves can be probably one of the most difficult things that we can do. So forgiveness really is the basis of being able to give love. And the reason why we want to be able to do that, and we want to be able to heal this stuff up, be able to say, I don't like what you did. I don't agree with what you did. In fact, what you did was terrible. It made me pissed off. You know, you hurt me, whatever that feeling is. But the key is that energy isn't affecting them. It's not affecting them. You being angry, you being pissed off, it's not affecting them. But guess what it is affecting? It's affecting the reality that you're creating. So not only are you ending up, because you are not allowing them and letting them be in their space, let them be the, you know, nasty, crappy person they might be. But the fact that if you are not allowing that and letting that go and forgiving that love, right? What ends up happening is that all it's doing is creating in your space. So that energy, that toxicity does nothing for them. And in fact, most toxic people, this is what I've found. Here's the kicker. Most toxic people absolutely love the fact that they have made you that damn mad. They are so happy about it. They are so happy that they have pissed you off that much. And, you know, if that's not a motivation to forgive, then I don't know what is. But it's one thing we have to start considering. How are we pulling in something how are we pulling that in and projecting that out in a way that's helping us? So Shadow says, if you care for someone who constantly shows up drunk or high and you care about them, how would you need to forgive yourself? That's an awesome question. And I think I would start, depending on what the circumstances are, in that scenario, I would use the prompt, I forgive myself for enabling or allowing you to bring this energy into my space. I'm not going to allow you to do that anymore. I love you enough to think higher of you. so that you will not bring this energy into my space anymore. And so it's really becomes about what your personal boundaries are, and loving them enough to see them higher. See them higher. They might not be able to do that for themselves. They really might not, especially if you're dealing with something like substance abuse and things like that. But being able to set those boundaries, being able to sit in your space and go, you know what? I love myself enough and I love you enough to require this of you, because the energy that you're bringing in right now, it's not working for me. It's not working. And you don't have to use other words than that. It can just be like, you know what? This doesn't work for me. This is, no, we're not doing this. And be able to give them a new set of expectations. And interestingly enough, the funny thing is that I've often coached clients with this also, where they've got, a haunting that's going on. There's a behavior that's happening that they don't like. Things are going missing when they shouldn't, this type of thing. And to be able to set and use the same language. You know what? This isn't working for me. It's not working. Here's what you can do though. I don't like it when you do X, Y, Z, and I'm not going to allow that in my space anymore. But here's what I'd like you to do instead, and giving that direction, right? That steering in that direction, look where you want to go. That's part of the importance with something like this. But when we're getting into things like, like what Shadow was mentioning, things like substance abuse and whatnot, we really have to start to ask ourselves, at what point are we enabling that person to bring that into our world and bring that into our space? You can love somebody from over there. You can love somebody from over there. And there comes a point where if you've got somebody who just doesn't want to help themselves, who just they're done. They don't have any interest in helping themselves. They want to argue. They're bringing in fights. They want to, complain and whatever else. And they want to come into that space. You don't have to let them. You don't have to let them. And it's just in the same way that when we deal with, as I say, things like hauntings, when we deal with things like negative entities that they move, sometimes that they move into a space. Not only can we address that, but at the same token, we have to understand that something that we're doing, something that we're giving off is holding this present in our reality, and we have to start to understand what that is, and that's different in every single situation. So when we get into things, as I say, like forgiveness, when we get into things like the ability to trust, we really have to start to look at even things like our own egos about this stuff. Okay, so our negative ego often, we want the apology. Like, how many people want they want the damn apology? They just want to, they want to see that other person like get on their knees and damn well apologize. But here's the thing, that's just not always possible. We've had a lot of, I've had a number of clients that have come to me over the years that have just said, yeah, I'm mad as hell at so-and-so, but guess what? They're dead. They're dead. And I'm not going to get that apology, or I'm not going to, be able to say or feel like I'm able to say what I need to say. And that's where, being able to connect back in with, our own ability to validate who we are, connect back in with ourselves, and let that energy go. And however you want to do it, that's something that is going to be personal for everybody. Is different for everyone. But being able to, for example, have these people that are constantly, in your space that are, are being negative towards you, or frustrating, or doing something that's not fitting in. We have to start to look at ourselves. Why are we allowing it? That's the first one. Why are you allowing it? If they're causing you this much trouble, what's going on? What's going on with you? Number one, that why are you attracting what this is? And also to turn around and say, look, we have the ability to set a boundary, and to define what it is that we want to experience. Do you love yourself enough? Do you love yourself enough to turn around and be able to say, this doesn't work. This isn't working. You're hurting my feelings. You're bringing in this toxicity. I don't deserve it. And understand that if you're not able to do that, to start to ask yourself why. That's a problem. That's a big problem. So that's something that, it's really, really important to address. So the more that we can forgive, the more in alignment with that part of non-physical that is joy, that is love, that is passion, that is excitement, all of those things, all of that passion ends up becoming our point of attraction, which ends up changing not only the haunting that might be going on in the house or something like that, but it also starts to change, as I say, how people see you, how energies see you in general, whether they be living or not. It puts you in a different range on that emotional scale. So the more we start to clean that up, the more love we can forgive to not only others, but to ourselves, which puts us, as I say, at a very different set point, which ends up attracting a different type of activity. So forgiveness is unbelievably crucial to any sort of haunting situation, and just within moving through our day-to-day life in general. We've got a lot of stuff that's going on right now in the world. We got a lot, and people are really mad. People are mad at politicians. People are mad at, one another. People are, angry at the circumstances. They're mad that we don't, maybe you don't have enough money. You've got all of these circumstances that are going on right now. And to be able to start to break this down, and start one by one, piece by piece, and sometimes you got to go back and do it twice, to begin to forgive and give yourself permission to be upset. Give yourself permission, and then be able to just let this go. So I'm going to give you guys 2 prompts today as your process, okay? I'm going to give you guys 2 prompts because I think these are some of the most powerful that I've used over the years, and I think they are crucial to moving forward within this process. And I give these to my clients as well. And the first prompt is, and if you guys have a pen or a journal or anything like that, you can write this down. Say writing is just like so powerful. And the first prompt is, I forgive myself for. I forgive myself for. Whatever it is, I forgive myself. And maybe it is something to do with allowing certain energy to stay in my experience. I forgive myself for not loving myself enough to put up a boundary. I forgive myself for not taking care of myself and my thoughts and my feelings and neglecting myself. I forgive myself for. So that's your first prompt. Your second prompt is, I give myself permission. I give myself permission to. What do you give yourself permission for? I give myself permission to take the time and heal this. I give myself permission to be upset. I give myself permission. What is that for you? I give myself permission to opt in. I give myself permission to claim or ask, and maybe the forgiveness is something you are asking for. I am going to ask for forgiveness. I give myself permission for that. And I think so. Some of these processes, moving through these, really does require being able to tell the rock gut truth about where you are. It really is. It's not about blaming others. It's not about excusing it or telling, some sort of story about it. I coached a number of clients. This was a couple of months ago now. And one of the things that I noticed that they were doing was, this happened, but, but this person shouldn't have felt this way. Or, well, this happened and I felt bad, but, they should have been blah, 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 whatever. And that's not helpful. That's the ego. That's the negative ego. Don't do that. This is about you, first of all. You can't change how they feel. You don't have control over that. You don't have control of what they think, what they feel, nothing. That's not up to you. But you can turn around and pay attention to what it is that you can do. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. It's probably one of the most difficult things for some people. So I definitely want you guys to take a look at that. And the process that I want to give you, as I say, are those 2 prompts. and start to write those out, work through those, and see where you get to, because I have a funny feeling that by the end of it, you're going to have a very different perspective on not only who you are, but where those boundaries are. And as I say, those can be asserted not only in life, but in hauntings and, all sorts of things. So it changes our set point, which means it changes the type of paranormal activity that we end up getting, which means it also changes the environment and the people around us and how we're seeing it. Now, the one thing I will say is that when you start this work, some people will take off. They will. They just will. They're not going to be up to speed with that. And that's okay. They can do that. They're allowed to do that. You don't have to participate. And that's probably one of the things that I see the most on some of the online threads and stuff like that, where, people are getting so upset and they're getting angry and they're arguing and whatever. And, you don't have to participate. You don't. And just like with somebody bringing in that negative energy or bringing in whatever it is to your space that's like not so good, you don't have to participate. You get to choose how you want to be in relationship there. You get to choose. If you don't want that in your space, if you've got somebody who keeps bringing in that toxicity, you don't have to participate in that way. You get to choose how you want to be in relationship with these people, whether it be your boss, or whether it be family around the dinner table, coworkers, whatever. You get to choose, but it is about taking ownership of that choice, and again, being able to stand in a place of forgiveness, and say, you know what, I'm doing this forgiving for me. I know you don't care. Because they usually don't. They usually think they're right? They're usually arguing to be right. But being able to understand, look, this really is about me, and I don't want to hang on to this anymore. My point of attraction is too important. I love myself too much to allow you to take up rent space in my head, and I'm going to let this go. So it changes. It really does change your environment, and boy, will it turn a haunting around really, really, really quick. So, that being said, I wanted to grab a reading today that I thought was really, really good, which is from Our Faith in the Valley by Miss Iyanla Vanzant. And I loved this piece this morning, so I thought that this was a good way to introduce our book. You are blessed. It might not look or feel that way right now, but it's true. If you want to know how blessed you are, think back to a situation you thought was right for you and admit how wrong you were. At the time, you may not have realized that you were growing. There was no way to know back then that something bigger and better was on the other side of something painful, ugly, and uncomfortable. Now look where you are, and remember where you were. Realize that you are right now is not where you are going to be at some time in the near future. Whether you love it or hate it, your current condition is only temporary. Do your best. Do what you can. Give what you have to give. And remember, you are still growing. You are learning. In fact, you are earning new degrees of wisdom. Sure, you've got some grief. Sure, you've got some fears. You might even have bouts of pain and sadness. However, just around the corner from where you are, you will be able to look back and see how truly blessed you are. I love that. Something also to remember. Arnold keeps asking me if I got his email. I did. I have not read it yet. I have been busy preparing for today's class. I will get to it today. So I wanted to give you guys that. I also want to give you guys a really neat to-do. I discovered something really cool on YouTube, and I'm going to post a link to it on Entity Seeker for you guys to check out. It is a haunted history tour of the New Orleans French Quarter. French Quarter. So those of you guys who have wanted to go to New Orleans and to check out the amazing history, I have not been to New Orleans. I have heard so much about its hauntings and the phenomenon that goes on there and its incredible history. And this is the haunted history tour of the New Orleans French Quarter. So cool. So I'm going to post that for you guys so you guys can check that out today. It is just the neatest thing, and it's the ability to go into so many places that we haven't had access to before, and now we get to go, right? So we get to see all these things. I think it's so cool. Don't forget, if you guys, as I say, have missed classes or anything like that, go back to entityseeker.ca or youtube.com/entityseeker. Subscribe to that, and you'll get all of the classes and whatnot that are going to be there. Shadow says the French Quarter was one of the best ghost tours she's ever done. I believe it. I can't even imagine. I think it's amazing. If any of you guys have done it and you've got pictures or anything like that, send them, and I will put them up on the Entity Seeker Facebook page, because it's just such a neat corner of America. America's got so many brilliant historical locations and so much depth that now, of course, everything is so empty, but these little tours get to, we get to take a dive into it every once in a while, so it's pretty cool. So anyway, everybody, thank you so much for coming today, coming every morning. I so appreciate all of you for just being here and logging in, and I hope that today shine some more light on how some of this stuff works, and gets some of you guys going in the right direction too. I love doing this with you guys every morning, and I will see you right back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Mountain Time on Spiritual Healthcare. Don't forget to share, everybody. Don't forget to invite people in and whatnot, because this is just it's so much fun to do this every morning. And also send your questions. Please send more questions, because I keep them all, and I've got this list. So please send questions, topics that you guys want to cover, all of that, because they're all going in the list, and we're going to get to them. So please send them in. Tweet me or send me an email, or message me on Facebook here, or whatever it is. So I love you guys so much. I will see you guys tomorrow morning, and have an amazing day. Bye.